In a future where people stop aging at 25 thanks to genetic changes, life expectancy is just a year more after that, as shown on a timer on their arm. Time becomes money, and the rich can live forever, while the poor struggle to make ends meet. Will wakes up to find he has less than a day left on his timer. He celebrates his mom Rachel's 50th birthday, but they're worried about money. Rachel only has 3 days left on her timer, stressing about bills and loans. Will promises to get the money she needs. Rachel goes to work, and Will plans to meet her later to give her more time. She gives him 30 minutes for lunch. Will heads to work at a time storage factory with his friend Borel. He's upset with his small paycheck and talks to the distributor, who says quotas have gone up. Feeling down, Will goes to a bar but refuses to gamble. He does get an hour from someone who owes him. Seeing a rich man named Henry with lots of time, Will notices someone watching them. He warns Henry about potential danger. Will tries to get the obvious man to leave, warning him of danger, but the man refuses. Suddenly, a scary group enters the bar, and everyone rushes to leave. Will's friend Borel tells him about the Minutemen, a gang known for stealing and threatening people. Despite Borel's efforts to get him to leave, Will decides to stay and watch, promising not to do anything foolish. The gang's leader, Fortis, confronts Henry for his time, offering to fight for it. Henry gets scared and hides in the bathroom. Will steps in, knocking out one of the gang members and getting Henry to safety. Fortis and his crew chase them, but they manage to escape and hide in an old building. While they're on the run, Will and Henry become friends. Henry reveals he's 105 years old and tired of life's struggles. He explains how the rich keep everyone else poor to stay immortal, controlling the cost of living. Will starts thinking about the value of time and the choices it gives. Will decides he won't waste his time like Henry has. Henry is inspired by Will's determination, and they find comfort in each other's company, facing their uncertain future together. As the sun rises, Henry gives almost all of his remaining time to Will while he sleeps. When Will wakes up, he's shocked to see he now has more than 100 years left on his timer. Looking for Henry, Will finds him on a bridge, peaceful as his time runs out, falling into the river below. Later, Will finds Borel and feels comforted by his friend's new family. He tells Borel what happened and decides to fight against the unfairness in their society. Feeling empowered by what he's learned, Will shares some of his time with Borel, giving him hope for the future. Meanwhile, Rachel fights against time's relentless advance, and her struggle for survival is ignored by society. She pleads for help, but time doesn't show mercy. In a heartbreaking end, Rachel's efforts are in vain as she loses to fate, leaving Will to grieve for the moments they've lost. As another day ends, timekeepers find Henry's body in the river. Raymond, an experienced timekeeper, and his apprentice, Jaeger, investigate and find a camera on the bridge, silently recording time passing by. Amidst the journey, Will sits poised in a car, adorned in a newfound guise, his countenance reflecting a resolve unseen before. They traverse the boundaries of the time zone, demarcating the stark divisions in society. With each toll paid at the border crossings, Will's time diminishes, culminating in a hefty price at the final threshold, a year sacrificed as he enters the opulent enclave of New Greenwich. The driver asks Will why he wants to get back at the rich people in New Greenwich. Will explains that he wants revenge because he thinks they have too much while others struggle. When Will arrives in New Greenwich, he feels overwhelmed by the fancy lifestyle, remembering how different it is from his humble beginnings. Even though he stays in a fancy hotel room, he can't shake off the sadness of losing his mom too soon. In this world of luxury, Will enjoys the fancy food and nice things that money can buy. But deep down, he hasn't forgotten where he came from. He acts quickly, knowing that time is short and things could change at any moment. His presence in New Greenwich catches the attention of Sylvia, a woman who finds him interesting because he's different. Will isn't afraid, though. He decides to take a risk and try his luck at something new, hoping to even out the playing field for people like him. Meanwhile, at the timekeeper's main place, cameras record Will's bold actions, making Raymond, who has a connection to Will's family history, pay close attention. As Will sits down to play poker, the game becomes even more intense, but he remains determined despite a society that thrives on taking advantage of time. As the cards are dealt, Philippe, a wealthy man who has lived for thousands of years, starts talking to Will. With each round of the game, Will wins more and more, collecting over 200 years. Philippe isn't bothered and raises the bet by 50 years, but Will faces the challenge confidently, not backing down. Amidst the game's intensity, Will's attention shifts to Sylvia, seated beside Philippe, who boasts of his vast time reservoir, justifying societal inequality. Despite Philippe's escalation of the bet, Will remains resolute, sacrificing his time for a chance at victory. Fortune favors Will as the final cards are revealed, granting him a windfall of a millennium. Philippe notices Will's interest in Sylvia and learns of his admiration, revealing her as his daughter and inviting Will to a lavish soiree. The next day, Will arrives at Philippe's fancy house, rich from his poker winnings. He meets 3 women from different generations, all looking ageless. Surrounded by the rich and powerful, Will feels out of place until Sylvia saves him by being his friend amid all the luxury. As they talk, Sylvia shares how she feels trapped by the time she's inherited, which should be a gift but feels like chains holding her back. In the music and on the dance floor, Will and Sylvia find comfort in each other, knowing they both carry the weight of their time inheritance. As Philippe and his wife watch them closely, Will feels their eyes and takes Sylvia to the beach for some peace. Under the moon's light, they undress and dive into the cool water, their bodies moving together in the waves' dance. Even as Sylvia tries to keep her distance, they're drawn closer by the ocean's pull, forming a deep connection in the moonlit night. Their moment is interrupted by a call from the shore, bringing them back to reality. Philippe invites Will to play poker, but before they can start, the timekeepers arrive. Raymond questions Will about his extra time, but Raymond doesn't believe his explanation. Raymond takes Will's time and arrests him, leaving Sylvia behind. In a desperate attempt to escape, Will fights back and runs off with Sylvia. They dash through a busy kitchen, grab a car, and speed away into the night. The timekeepers chase them through the dangerous streets, narrowly avoiding trouble at every corner. As the sun rises, they seek brief shelter under a bridge, their stolen moment of rest fleeting as the daylight approaches. Will asks Sylvia to share her time, but she refuses. They continue their journey on the dangerous highways, facing many dangers and uncertainties. Their search for time brings them face to face with Fortis and his gang, leaving Sylvia exhausted and desperate. With only a few minutes left, they hurry to get more time. But their hopes are shattered when they find out Borel has died, leaving Sylvia heartbroken. In a last-ditch effort, Will strikes a deal with Raymond, offering Sylvia's freedom in return for transferring time to the impoverished city. Despite warnings of danger, Will persists, determined to free Sylvia at any cost. As night falls, Sylvia finds comfort in Will's embrace, their shared struggles strengthening their bond. Morning comes, but the promised time transfer doesn't happen, leaving Sylvia disillusioned by her father's betrayal. Despite the setback, Will remains determined to set her free, showing the enduring strength of love in a world ruled by time. Sylvia feels hurt by her father's neglect but realizes he gained wealth by exploiting others. Will suggests Sylvia go home, but she refuses, leading them to agree to work together and share a kiss. Although Sylvia wants to call home, Will gives her a gun for protection while he keeps watch. When Sylvia calls, Weiss warns her that the timekeepers are coming. As Sylvia turns, she sees Raymond approaching Will, so she shoots him in the arm. Will checks Raymond's timer and sees that timekeepers don't carry much time to deter thieves. He gives Raymond some time to help him, and they escape in Raymond's car. Meanwhile, Sylvia and Will ditch their stolen cop car, resorting to a new scheme where Will impersonates a timekeeper to steal from a wealthy woman. Realizing they're wanted, they face a pivotal decision when Will urges Sylvia to turn back, but she refuses, finding their actions fulfilling. Weiss's deceit catches up with him as Raymond informs him of Sylvia's criminal status, rejecting Weiss's attempted bribe and warning him against harboring Sylvia. Later, Sylvia and Will devise a plan to crash a money truck into a time bank, distributing time capsules to the needy, sparking a moral dilemma for Raymond. The repercussions of their actions become evident when Fortis, attempting robbery, accidentally wastes a significant amount of time, leading to questions about the unintended consequences of their altruistic efforts. Meanwhile, Will and Sylvia's time bank robberies capture headlines, stirring Weiss's doubts about his daughter's intentions, countered by his wife's reminders of his violent past. Raymond and his team locate the duo's apartment, initiating a pursuit. Escaping, Will and Sylvia leap between buildings, eventually boarding a bus and bribing the driver for a getaway. Temporarily evading Raymond, they check into a hotel, securing all rooms discreetly. However, their presence is compromised when a curious guest glimpses them going upstairs. Meanwhile, Fortis and his gang terrorize the streets, coercing bystanders for information on Will and Sylvia. Initially hesitant to betray them, witnessing Fortis's brutality prompts one witness from the hotel to divulge what he saw. Bursting into their room, Fortis and his men hold Will and Sylvia at gunpoint, explaining their intention to restore order as the timekeepers turn a blind eye to his actions, considering he steals from his people. Fortis, unwilling to kill in cold blood, challenges Will to a time fight. Remembering his father's teachings, Will begins draining Henry's time as soon as Henry looks at his timer. Shocked guards draw closer, and Will seizes the opportunity to shoot them before depleting Fortis's time completely. By the time the timekeepers arrive, Will and Sylvia have vanished. Hours later, Will notices prices and loan rates soaring, compensating for the excess time on the streets. Their small-time robberies aren't enough. They need 1,000,000 years to make a significant impact. Sylvia knows where to find such a stash. The next day, Weiss, worried about the situation, heads to work with increased security. When Sylvia pretends to surrender, distracting Weiss, Will captures him as a hostage. They force Weiss to open the safe holding a 1,000,000-year capsule. Weiss warns of the consequences, but Will is determined to disrupt the system. They lock Weiss in his office and escape. Learning of the robbery, the timekeepers block the bridge to stop them. Raymond joins the pursuit, so focused on capturing Will and Sylvia that he forgets to collect his daily pay. The timekeepers open fire, but Will drives through the time zone barrier, reaching the ghetto. Raymond crashes into their car, but Will quickly hands the 1,000,000-year capsule to Maya before feigning surrender with Sylvia. Just as Raymond believes he's won, the timeline announces ample time for everyone, distracting Raymond from the eager crowd. As Sylvia and Will escape, Raymond pushes through the crowd to pursue them. When they cross another barrier, Raymond follows on foot. Catching up, Raymond reveals his origins in the ghetto and attempts to arrest them, but Will points out their imminent demise due to their limited time. Checking his timer, Raymond realizes he's running out of time too because he didn't collect his pay. In a sudden twist, Raymond's clock times out, and he dies on the spot. With only seconds left, Will and Sylvia share a final kiss, but Will notices the timekeepers have time in their vehicles. Rushing to Raymond's car, he grabs some time, then returns to Sylvia, sharing it just before their imminent deaths. Meanwhile, Weiss concedes defeat, instructing his employees to stand down. Across the nation, people take to the streets, factories remain inactive, and citizens cross zones toward New Greenwich. Despite authorities claiming control, the impending collapse of the system is evident. At the timekeeper's office, employees decide to go home, recognizing their powerlessness. Will and Sylvia evade capture and target larger banks to prevent the old system's resurgence, embracing their role in shaping a new future.